Hey guys, I just watched Martyrs for the second time in 8 years. The first time I watched it, it really had me messed up and I wasn't prepared for it because it was actually my introduction into extreme horror. Before Martyrs, I hadn't seen anything extreme, so the first time I saw that movie, it had me all kinds of messed up for a week straight. It just had me uncomfortable. Since the first time I watched Martyrs, I've seen, your usual, like Salo, Cannibal Holocaust. People say Serbian film, but that one really wasn't that bad. Human Centipede movies, Ebola Syndrome. What else did I see? And I can't remember off the top of my head, but since then I've seen all those, so now when I go back and watch Martyrs again, it really isn't that bad. The first time I saw it, I didn't pick up on some of the nuances, and now the second time I'm watching it, I can see more of the story develop and I can understand it a lot better. It still holds up. It's an amazing movie. I don't feel very confident about the remake to Martyrs because it's an American remake, and from what I'm hearing, they took all the balls out of it, and it seems that American cinema is not quite ready to do a lot of extreme movies. When I say extreme, I don't mean extreme gore like in Found or Headless. I'm talking about extreme where it just makes you feel uncomfortable. It makes you physically feel like uneasy for the duration of the movie. That's what I mean. I don't see that too often in American films as opposed to French or Japanese films and even some Korean films. I definitely recommend Martyrs if you are into extreme horror. If you are a casual horror watcher and maybe something like I Know What You Did Last Summer or Scream really bothered you or upset you, this movie would be a little bit too much for you. But if you like to be challenged, if you're the type of person that hears, oh, this is the sickest thing that you've ever seen, and you're like, challenge accepted, then yes, this is definitely the movie to watch. Everything about it was pretty good. The acting was very good. The scenery is good. The house that they chose to feature in it was pretty amazing, in my opinion, because it wasn't a typical layout. The gore effects were really, really good. There's one particular effect. I don't know whether this would be a spoiler or not. We'll just put it this way. If you have seen Martyrs, then you might know what I'm talking about if I say that it's comparable to the makeup that was done for the uncle in Hellraiser. Oh God, what's his name? Ah, Frank. It's me, your Uncle Frank. Anyway, that part of the movie is always, it's hilarious to me when he says that. But that makeup towards the end of the movie was very comparable to the Uncle Frank makeup in Hellraiser. And I was impressed with it, but I like practical effects anyways. I will choose practical effects every time over CGI. Now, I'm not saying that CGI is horrible and should never be used. I think CGI can be used to enhance practical effects, or in certain spaces in sci-fi movies, of course, but in horror, there's just something more organic about practical effect makeup. And they did it very well in Martyrs, to where you don't really think of it as makeup when you first see it. And I think that's what makes it so striking and visceral. The story in itself, towards the end, or I should say the ending, is very vague, and it's kind of up to the watcher to interpret what the ending means. I always think that's a good way to end a movie. It kind of gives you something to talk about, to discuss after a movie. And it also holds up to multiple viewings, because as you view it more and more, you might change your opinion of what the ending meant. So, I mean, there's that. I'm just going over this just kind of in short because I want to compare and contrast it to the Martyrs remake. And I feel like I can discuss it better if I make a spoiler video, because then I can really go in depth. But I really just wanted to rewatch the original before I watched the remake so I can compare and contrast. So right now I'm going to go in the living room and go watch the remake, and I'll be right back. I just finished watching the Martyrs remake, and I was going to give you a spoiler-free review, but fuck this movie. If you still watch this movie after you finish hearing me talking about this movie, then you're on your own. But this movie it shouldn't even have been called the remake of Martyrs. Based on the movie Martyrs, it should have been inspired by it, because it really wasn't. It was so wrong and everything. And it started with when I first saw the word Bloomhouse. That's when I knew, oh crap, this wasn't gonna be good. I had to take notes on this because there's so much to talk about of what's wrong with this movie. Opening scene with the little girl running, they completely took everything out of that scene that made it visceral. I mean, in the original, you see this little girl running with her head halfway shaved, and she's got these dirty undershirt and panties on, and her legs are all bruised up, her arms are all bruised up, her face is bruised up. She's just the image of her running captures you. They took that image and changed it to like a little girl that basically looked like Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie running. There's nothing engaging about that at all. There's a sepia, I never know how to pronounce it, filter that a lot of newer movies like to use, especially the ones that are made for Chiller Channel, and I really can't stand that sepia overlay or whatever you would call it, filter. It's cheap to me. It's a cheap way of trying to make something look dirty and gritty without actually just literally just making it look dirty and gritty. I don't know, they completely condensed the backstory with Lucy and Anna. In the original Martyrs, there's a good 8 minutes of backstory with Lucy and Anna getting to know each other before even the title credit for Martyrs. In this, I don't know how long it was, but it felt like it was maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes tops of you getting to know Lucy and Anna. When they first show we'll approach it as if we're first watching it. When I first watched Martyrs and they showed the ghost girl, what I thought was a ghost girl, it was kind of scary. It was really creepy, especially later on with the bathroom scene, but I'll come back to that. When they redid it in this one, they completely took everything scary out of it. It felt like the Goosebumps version of Martyrs. I mean, it was... And when they first show her face, there's this scene. It's really, really creepy where little girl's in the bed. She sees the door open by itself. She looks, like she's about to look under her bed, and she sees a little leg go underneath the bed, so she knows something is underneath the bed, and she puts a cover over her head, and when she brings the cover back down, you see, the ghost girl there. And the remake, instead of there being a very creepy looking ghost girl, it looked like a screamer, like from one of those early, the YouTube videos where it'd be like, oh, try to solve this maze, and it's going like this, and then you just see the Exorcist screamer. That's what it looked like. It wasn't. I generally jump at jump scares, not because I'm scared, but just loud noises startle me. I didn't even jump on this, and that's bad. They switched the roles of the parents. In the original, they had the mother was working on the plumbing outside, and the father was making breakfast for the children. In the American version, they reversed roles because, us American women, we can't do anything but look pretty and whatever. When Lucy gets to the house where she's committing her revenge, let's go first with the shooting. In the original, when she's shooting, you really see, their chests explode open. You see it go through the back. You see blood splatter everywhere. It's very realistic when you think about shooting someone at close range. And this, they toned that down too much. I mean, to the point where there was hardly any blood anywhere. And if you walked in and shot someone at close range with a shotgun, there would be way more blood than what they have there. But aside from that, again with the ghost girl, and I keep saying in quotation marks because at this point, when I first watched it, I still thought it was a ghost girl until there was a flashback scene that explains that when Lucy escaped, she saw a woman in a chair and she was unable to save that woman, so she's now haunted by the memory of not being able to save that woman. So really it's kind of a figurative way and / literal way of someone being haunted by something, but it turns out it's all in her head. But those scenes were done so much better in the original. The character of Lucy and how she was written, also the actress, she really was able to play up those parts where she looked unhinged. And I feel like in the new one, it didn't seem like that at all. There was a lot missing. And they didn't even do the bathroom scene, which I don't want to spoil that one because I love that scene, the bathroom scene. And if you've watched the movie, you know what I'm talking about when I say the bathroom scene. They completely cut that out of this version. Oh, matter of fact, I actually stopped the movie at this point because I wanted to show my husband the original of what that scene was supposed to look like. And since I have Martyrs, the original, I fast forwarded, showed him the scene of when Lucy arrives at the house, how the family is introduced, how you get to know the family, and then how everything ensues, and compare that to how they redid it in this movie, like a high school production. No, I don't even want to say high school production because that's disrespectful to high school students. I think that if I got 5 high school students and gave them one Android camera and one iPhone camera, they'd probably make a better movie than what this turned out to be. The girl in the basement, and I'm just skipping around here because I really don't care about this movie at all. They changed the girl in the basement to another like cute little girl named Samantha. That is not what the girl in the basement looked like. She was hideous. She was emaciated. She had this metal thing that was like stapled to her head. She was completely crazier than a shithouse rat. She was totally different. Why would you change that? Why would you change that? That makes no sense at all. Why would you take all the best scenes and say, you know what, I want to remake this movie, except I want to take everything out of it that was actually good? The hell is that? I don't know. This is so fucked. And then, they changed the ending. Lucy does not die in the house like she did before. Instead, she's tortured, and instead of her dying and them torturing Anna and making Anna the martyr, they continue to torture Lucy and a few other characters that they never really introduced. They just show them being tortured. There was no hair cutting. There was no, what I call the pee hole chair, because they originally had this chair that the people were strapped down to, or I should say shackled to, because they had metal shackles. And this one they changed it to zip ties. Zip ties are not as scary as shackles. I don't understand what the thought process was behind this. Anyways, there was no pea soup feeding either. That kind of was, there was little touches like that they're not outwardly disturbing like how you would say, showing someone being sawed open would be. But the thought of being forced to eat something vile is still kind of creepy. And it lends to that whole atmosphere of slowly torturing someone. Even with the guy talking to the girl saying, open your eyes if you want to live. That is not as creepy as in the original when they just had that big burly guy come in, just walk in the door and just start wailing on her with no explanation, no provocation, just do it. Just come in, beat the crap out of her, and then leave every day. That was more engaging, that was more interesting than anything they did in this movie. There was one thing that was an American touch. In the original, Lucy ran out of ammo, and it shows that, she has no more shells. In this one, Anna never runs out of ammo, and that's because this is America. We don't run out of ammo. As long as there's a Walmart, we have ammo. I took a note about Anna being shot in the shoulder and stabbed in the spleen and still going, but that's not interesting. The original ending really stuck with you because it wasn't explained completely. In this, everything was overly explained, and I feel insulted. I feel like people think that Americans are that stupid that we need things to be broken down into its simplest form. And maybe we are that stupid. I don't know. I hope not. But there was another thing in the subtext that they forgot to work into this. And that was, there was a scene where Anna kisses Lucy, and it's more in a romantic way, in my opinion. They left that whole thing out. Maybe it's America. We're uptight about shit like that. This movie wasn't shit. Don't watch it. Watch the original Martyrs if you got the balls. Watch this Martyrs if you're 8 years old. Because you shouldn't be watching the other one anyways. But the other Martyrs, if you're grown people and you are not afraid of horror movies, watch the original Martyrs and just skip over this. This made me feel like how I felt when I watched the remake to Cabin Fever. I can't even talk about that one because I don't remember it. Watched the complete movie, forgot about it right afterwards because there was nothing memorable about it. There was nothing to remember about it. I'm just sick of these remakes, but that's a rant for a whole nother video. Anyways, that's it. Talk to y'all later. I forgot to talk about that damn CGI fire. That was horrible. That made this stuff look like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. It made it look like if Lifetime made horror movies, this is what it would look like. I mean, that fire looked like anybody could have done it on After Effects. I'm just upset with that. You know what?